Welcome to the Coast Podcast. I'm Emilie, a virtual assistant agency owner who left Amazon in 2019 to build my dream.
And I'm Whitney, a freelance writer and communications consultant who never felt at home in a cube farm.
We didn't see many people paving their own ways like we decided to, so we created this podcast to talk to others who were brave enough to pick a different path. Creatives, entrepreneurs, people doing their careers and their lives their way.
Join us as we learn from them, get inspired, and show you beautiful paths less traveled.
Not every road leads to the coast, but the ones that do come with a great view. Welcome to the Coast Podcast. My name is Emilie Given, and I own a virtual assistant agency right out of Linwood, Washington.
And I'm Whitney Popa. I am a writer and communications consultant in Edmonds, Washington. And today we have the pleasure of talking to our friend Ashley McFarland, who owns Shift and Shine, which is, I think, beyond astrology, but I'm just going to call it an astrology company. And she did a birth chart reading for my mom and me for Mother's Day, and came over to my house and did this whole birth chart thing. But also, I threw her for a loop because I had the exact time of my birth wrong. So she had to scramble to make it right for me, and it was still amazing. And she definitely worked from the seat of her pants with that, and I think I made her sweat a little bit. But for whatever reason, I was able to just find a copy of my birth certificate just in our safe in our house and show it to her and be like, oh, actually, it was a 6-minute difference or something that really changed the whole look of my birth chart. And it's something that I've been wanting to do for my mom and me for a really long time. So I was excited to find her through just Seattle women's networking, I think through the Busy Girls who we just had last week. You were on their podcast last year. So we're really excited to have you and talk to you about your business and kind of your journey to get to where you are now.
Thank you, guys. I'm so excited to be here. I had such a fun time with you and your mom. I think that was my second in person, but because I started my business during the time of COVID, but it just felt right. I was like, I've just got to do this. And you both are super magical. So it was a good time. But yes, it's interesting with the birth chart. I mean, if something is, if your birth time is a few minutes off, depending on how things are, it can shift things. And in your case, it certainly was. So
yeah, we shifted and we shined.
Thank you. Yes.
That is what we did during our time. And so we're all connected through a lot of different people, through Allison and Lacey, and also through Danica, who we mention pretty much on every episode at this point. But you guys are best friends from way back, right?
Yeah. No, we did. We met in college. So we met in college. Yep, senior year of college.
Childhood, yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. I'm like, oh, I guess that was 15, 16, 17 years ago, maybe? Yeah. So, yes. But no, so and it's been really cool to just see, because we were super close for a while and had a little bit of time apart. And during that time, we both found ourselves in a healing space and then both reconnected during kind of our journeys. And now we're here. And it's really fun to have someone going through similar things, especially with the spiritual journey. So that's been really nice. And also to just, be an entrepreneur and, from Seattle and all those things, to do that together too is a lot of fun.
So you were in Seattle and then you both moved to New York, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes. And so we graduated. I went to Mexico for a year. She went straight to New York. And then right after I was done with Mexico, I told her I was coming, and she goes, okay, great. I've got you a job and I've got you an apartment. And I was like, well, there we go. So I think 3 weeks after I had come back, I was in New York. So, and it was just like the time of, we just had like the time of our lives. I mean, it was the most ridiculous 20s that anyone could have, but I feel like it was right out of a movie, and we did all the things. So I'm glad we got that experience. And funny, I think neither of us thought that we would come back home. And I think we both thought, we're going to settle in New York and this is it, but as, the universe would have it or whatnot, we both found ourselves back in Seattle. So, yeah.
Were you working in marketing, or what kind of job did she find you out there?
So she was working for Vitamin Water at the time. And so she got me a job doing that. And we were in event marketing. And so we would travel all around the New York kind of tri-state area. And it was guerrilla marketing. So we would show up at different events with Vitamin Water and Smart Water. And this is right when Vitamin Water was bought out by Coca-Cola. So they had big marketing budgets. And we drove these large Sprinter vans all over the city. There were these large, 26-foot vehicles. And thinking back, I thought, God, we had no business doing what we were doing. But, but we had a good time with it. And we, when you get in New York, you really kind of, I feel like you just have to get in the hustle culture and in the hustle mindset. And so we would trade cases of Vitamin Water for manicures and pedicures and meals and you name it. It was just okay, how can we, barter and work our magic and make things happen. And so we met a lot of people, we did a lot of things, and, and then we settled down a little bit more.
Yeah, I feel like that there was a guerrilla marketing heyday that we were all in at that time. At the Rack, we did so much guerrilla marketing when we were opening new stores. And I remember I had the highest status on Alaska by March of one year, and was balling all over the country, feeling so impressed with myself, as I should have been. Yeah. And just being also, I'm 26 and I should not be doing what I'm doing right now. How is this my life? How am I riding around on the corporate jet?
Yeah.
And also just being fuck yeah, I deserve this.
Yeah. No, I know exactly what you mean. I think it's interesting now working with clients who are in their early 20s or even in their mid 20s, and just the desire for growth and for spirituality and the self-awareness and consciousness that these kids, I don't even know, in their early 20s, I'm if I was trying to get a pair of Louboutins and go to the fancy restaurant, and get some guy to pay for my dinner, that was what I was into. And I'm oh gosh, if I would have had, if I would have had that awareness at that age, I think, wow, where would I be now? And obviously that wasn't supposed to be my journey, but I love these young kids and, young adults that are making big change and really interested in understanding more about themselves and more about the universe and spirituality at such a age where it's really easy to disconnect. So,
so that's something Whitney and I talk about all the time, instilling this in our kids are little, 2 and 4 and 5. Something that we instill in them all the time is passing down what we practice, and even if it's mindfulness and gratitude and things like we had a conversation this morning. EJ, my 5-year-old, was I'm gonna have a bad day at school today. I'm guess what? Your words, your actions, your thoughts are so magical that if you say, I'm gonna have a great day, you're gonna have a great day. And he's what? Yeah. So
I love that so much.
Little things that we're putting in practice, raising our children to be that self-aware and have some element of spirituality that they can embody as they grow up and choose to learn about more or choose not to. But Whitney and I talk about all the time, just cultivating that in our children from a super young age.
No, it's so important. And I'm so with you guys. Yesterday was fall equinox, and it's also the pagan holiday of Mabon. And so same thing with my son. I was all right, we've got apples. We're going to work with apples today. And we planted we put a little piece of apple we dug a little spot right next to his favorite tree, and we picked up a bunch of trash, and we're like trying to give back to Mother Earth. And, you know, he thinks it's, you know, all normal, right? And that, you know, something that just perhaps is different. It's also sweet because my son, so he's 4, and he'll tell people my mom works with the moon. So it's kind of cute to hear that. Yeah. Yeah. So.
That's cool that he thinks about it and is able to explain it so easily. Like if I ask my son, he says, Dada is on calls, Mama does emails, I guess. Like,
yeah. Well, no, thank you. I think we probably like, you know, been like, oh, you know, Mom's going to go work with the moon tonight, you know. So.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
How did you get from vitamin water and balling out in New York to this? Like, what did that look like?
So, you know, it's funny. I think in 2011, 2012 was probably when I had the first knock that at that time I probably should have moved into the kind of space that I'm in now, but it took me till 2020. And so right around 2012, I was still in New York or 2011, 2012. And I was working at a startup for Bai. I don't know if you guys, it's a low calorie antioxidant beverage, BAI. I don't know if
yeah. I
so
like their coconut water, but then also it's not coconut, their coconut flavor, but isn't it's flavored with like monk?
I think monk fruit. I think when they started, it was like a mix of erythritol and xylitol, or stevia. Not everyone is
I hate stevia.
Me too.
And I was like, oh, I want to like this, but then like that last lingering taste, I just can't get that out of,
Yep. I know. I'd almost just rather have the sugar. Like if I'm going to do it, like give me the sugar drink. But, but no, I was like one of the first, I think, like 15 people at the company at the time. So it was really early on, but it was the startup that kind of broke my spirit. And I think it was just a time where I did a lot of self-reflection, but I still didn't quite yet have the tools. And so at that time, I quit my job and I started cooking for friends as a way to kind of make money while I was on unemployment. And then I just eventually decided I needed to go home and just get rerouted. And so that's what brought me back to Seattle. And through that time, I think I just went, you know, I went to school for communications and marketing and PR. And so I kept trying to figure out like why that wasn't lighting me up anymore and why I felt such anxiety. But I thought, okay, well, maybe it's just the industry. So then I got into travel and hospitality and worked for hotels, both on property and then at the corporate level, and did that up until 2020. And it was probably about 2016 when like I felt like stuff was off. And I'm a Gemini moon and I'm a Leo sun. And so I have this, like, I always want to learn. I'm curious, you know, my Leo sun, I'm like, I've got to find purpose and I've got to, you know, have meaning and all these things. And I didn't have it anymore. And that was a really, really weird feeling. I was bored and I was uninspired. And so through that, at that time, I felt really lost. And it was in 2016 that I got pregnant with my son. And I believe that it was divinely orchestrated. I know that we've lived many lives together, and he came and he showed me purpose and he showed me meaning again. And so, and it was a surprise. My husband and I, we had thought, you know, maybe in 2017, we would try to get pregnant, 2018, have a child, but it happened unexpectedly. And so it was through his pregnancy where everything became magical again. And I was just like, oh, the trees. And I was talking to the trees and the birds and the, you know, and the flowers. And I felt such this profound responsibility that how could I show another human, this, you know, human that I was going to be this guide for? How could I show them meaning for life if I myself couldn't connect to it? And so it was wonderful that I think at that same time, it was just happening naturally. It wasn't like I had to go search for it. And then when he was born, I had a C-section, and about 15 minutes after, my palms started spinning. But I was so doped up on who knows what at the time. And I just remember I kept looking at my hands going, well, this is weird. You know, it didn't hurt, but there was like whirlpools in my hands. And so a few weeks later, I went to the doctor. I did lots of Google searches, and I was like, there's whirlpools in my hands. I don't know what to do. And they would start and stop. And that's what led me. So I went to the doctor, and they were like, well, if it doesn't hurt you and it's not harming you, we don't see anything that could be causing this problem. But it was through that sort of search to figure out why my palms were spinning that I learned about the chakras and about energy. And when he was born, my palm chakras were activated. And so it is something, yeah, I know and I think that's what really opened me up to the spiritual, because I think I was searching for purpose, and I thought motherhood and this responsibility and the beauty of this experience was giving me so much purpose. But I think it just started to grow the more that I explored why I had energy moving in my hands. And so that led me down this path of Ayurveda, and, got me interested in shamanism and Reiki and astrology and all of the things. And I think once that happened, it was like the doors blew off, and I was like, I want to do everything. I want to study everything. I want to understand everything. And again, I have this Gemini moon. So my inner world, my deepest desires, what lights my soul on fire is this curiosity and this, this wanting to learn. And so anyways, it was just, 2018 and 2019 for me were like, okay, I've got to find my thing now. And I knew it was the spiritual. And it was what I would say is it was really hard. And for anyone out there who's kind of goes through an awakening, regardless of what that awakening is, whether it's spiritual, whatever it is, if you think your life is supposed to be one way and then you wake up and you realize, oh gosh, it's not. It's kind of terrifying. And I think, I was doing poorly at work, and that is not something that I would do. But the level to which I did not care anymore was on another level. I mean, when Brooks was born, I certainly was like, why am I doing this? I just want to be home with him. And then once, I got totally into all the spiritual, I was like, I can't do this. Literally, I would spend the whole day studying my birth chart and, learning about energy and all these things. And I'm getting in trouble. It was horrible. So for me, I remember when my brother, who is, he's really well read, and he's up on all the things, or he knows things before they happen all the time. And it was January, and he was like, Ash, this virus is coming, and it's not going to be good for travel and hospitality. And I was like, great. Great. I don't know how that's going to play out, but maybe this will be the time that I can make the shift, because we were certainly a 2-income household. And by that time, I had already been studying astrology, and working under 2 teachers that I really, really adore. And so, so as things just started to kind of play out, I was like, the ship is sinking. It's going down. And I worked for Marriott at the time. And so we were furloughed at the end of March. And by May, I had my practice up and running. And I started just doing, free sessions. And by August, I decided I was ready to charge. And of course, there was a lot of imposter syndrome. And, there's a lot of people who feel that, you should put years and years and years in prior to doing charts professionally. But I felt like I found a way to do it that I still felt I had a lot of integrity, and that it was the right exchange where I could charge. And so that was in August of last year. And so it's just been a journey, but it's just crazy, because I would have it no other way. I remember telling my husband this, it was scary to make this switch. And I was like, you would have to take me back kicking and screaming. I can never go back. It's done. There is no going back to the corporate world. There is no going back to the 9 to 5. It is not. You couldn't pay me enough money to do it. And so
I'm unemployable now. Sorry.
Yeah, totally.
Nobody would deal with the demands that I fulfill. So
I always say that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it is. And you guys get this, but once you really get to know yourself and understand how you work and what works best, and I just can't. So I feel really lucky to be able to do what I love, and it's still a roller coaster. I mean, some months are amazing and some aren't. So it's a little bit of riding the wave and trusting. And, but I think I knew, I finally got to a place where I was like, okay, I've got to start with something, because I was so interested in everything. But the birth charts, I couldn't stop. Like, I couldn't stop with it. And so I said, okay, I'm just going to start with astrology and we'll see where this goes. So thank you when you were like, she has an astrology company, but it's bigger than that. And so I think ultimately, I look to weave different modalities too into the work that I do, because ultimately I am so driven by understanding what makes people tick. I love to help people understand what lights them up and makes them tick, and provide insight in that kind of way. And so that's what I want to do. And however that works, whether that's through the lens or the language of astrology, or if that's through Reiki or crystals or whatever, I want to be doing it. So yeah. So anyways, that was a long one, but that's my story.
It's a great one though.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's so similar to ours in a lot of ways, like with child, corporate. I checked out of corporate probably as soon as I got there, but worked really hard at it, like trying to make myself fit into this mold. And as soon as my dad died, that's when it was like all over for me, more when he got sick. But I kind of like kept trying to prove to myself, like, you can do this and have this basically external validation of success through all these like reaching up. And then I was like, but I don't really care what these people think of me, and I don't like hearing their feedback. I don't find it relevant. They're not who I want to be. This is not the life I want. So like you, I needed a couple kicks in the pants to get here. And I was joking a couple weeks ago about how ultimately my son, who's also 4, gave me the kick in the uterus that I needed to get out of it for good. And at first people would ask me, when are you going back to corporate? And I just thought it was such a silly question. I was like, well, hopefully never. And now I feel more confident in saying, like, I will never go back to a corporate office.
No, I love that. It's funny. I feel like I still get that too. So has Ashley found some work yet? What is she looking for a job? I mean,
Funny.
And my family, we just moved to the Dominican Republic. So I think, through COVID, I'd have, friends of the family ask that. But now too, with us being here, so what's Ashley doing for work? And it's like, well, I have a company and I have my own business. So
It's so funny too. Like, I notice, and my mom always tries to like talk me off the ledge about this, but my stepfather, I find that the way that he understands the world, and he's just the most recent person I saw who does this, but like so many male figures in my family, the way that they understand work is very male and masculine, and like he'll talk only to my husband about like, oh, what did you like, tell me about this report that you just submitted. And he works at Amazon, so he does docs, and I always like laugh at him because I'm like, I do like 1,000 docs a day. Like, you've been working on one doc for 2 weeks, sure, it's like long and very intense and all of that, but like he calls everything that he writes a doc. I guess that's just like the language that they use. But my stepfather wanted to talk to only Roz about his doc. And I was like, is anybody going to ask me about like the half a dozen docs I've already shipped off to my clients this week, and like what I'm doing for the family as well, instead of just him, being important because he worked on something for 2 weeks and finally had a meeting about it. Like,
I was thinking about this morning. Nobody in my family asked me about my business ever. Nobody.
Yeah.
No.
Yep.
And then
I
get mad.
What you guys mean.
Yeah, I volunteer the information, but then I'm like mad about it. So then I'm like, whatever, I'll just shut up.
Yeah. I know what you mean. I think it's like same thing in my family, but I think I've always been that one where I'm like, well, my dad he's a little bit more like me. And so he'll ask some questions sometimes, and my mom to a degree a little bit, but I'm like, all right, I'm just sharing. I'm just going to keep sharing. My whole life, I just shared, and I was like, well, hopefully someone's listening to me. And my husband sometimes will be like, stop, like no one asked, like, and I'm like, I don't know. I can't, I just have to, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So, but no, I know
think
exactly what you mean.
Yeah, it would be, I don't offer it usually, like I don't need their validation, but when I see kind of like it's disproportionate. Like you're curious about this person's job, who in my opinion, sure, his job is important, whatever, but it's like super boring to me. And also like I'm the one who's connected to your wife the most, so like wouldn't you be interested in what I do? Same with my uncles. They all ask him at every holiday, like, how's Amazon? Because it's like a company that they understand. But isn't it simple to be like, oh, she writes things, like let me get a little bit curious about this person. I don't know if it's like a gendered thing,
Right.
but it feels gendered.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. Well, and it's like, maybe it's a masculine thing. Like, what else can I connect over? So let me go the work route,
That's true, because
I don't know.
women can connect over lots of different things. We don't have to.
Yeah.
I feel like it's really easy for us to be like, oh, you have a kid, I have a kid. Or like, you're into spirituality. And like really quickly we can do that, but men aren't so quick to, things I like to do in my free time. Like, so work might be just an easy segue.
Yeah. And I feel like maybe it's also not as socially acceptable to them, like men of a certain age, to be asking women about their work. So they're not used to doing that. That's not what their conversations with women are about, if they're having conversations with women at all. I think it's just a comfort thing overall, but it always feels gross to me because I'm like, hello, like I have accomplishments. Would you like to ask me about my recent accomplishments? I'd love to tell you about them.
It's also a thing in like when you're doing really well in business too, like nobody's like celebrating with you, I guess. Like my husband and I celebrate together, but externally it feels like I'll text Whitney because Whitney's proud of me and I'm proud of her. We're like each other's person in that regard, but like it feels like society has told us like if you're really successful, like shh, like be quiet about it and like be humble and don't brag. But it's like, why can't we celebrate?
I know. I'm with you, and we need to have community. So I'm so glad you guys have each other, and that same kind of how I feel with Danica. It's like, it's just nice to have someone who understands and who gets that we don't have the same kind of team or the same visibility, but that community and that connection piece is so important. And the celebration.
How comfortable have you been marketing your business? Like, does it feel comfortable to you?
I love that question. It does not. And that is something that I am currently working through right now. I don't like selling. I have fun doing some of the social media just because I like creative work. And so I like it, but it's also a huge time suck because I don't do it like this. And I take my time and I get into it. And so it's just, I don't know, that's still a piece that I need to figure out because it feels icky the way that I'm currently doing it is kind of how I feel. And so I'm still kind of working through that. And like,
hit her with the human design.
I know. I was like, have you done your human design yet?
Yes. Okay. So I haven't had like an official chart reading, but I've looked at my own chart. And so I have some idea, but I really need a good session because I think I'm a manifesting generator. I'm a 1-3 profile. So I think I'm an investigative martyr.
I think my husband is Manny Gen 1-3, I'm pretty sure.
Who is?
My husband.
Oh, no kidding. Okay. So there's a couple things, and I'm really fascinated by my incarnation cross, and I want to learn more about that too. It's the right angle cross of the unexpected, and it essentially, what I've looked up is, it's like, well, at some point you're going to be thrust into a leadership position. And when you do, you just need to hold it up. Even if you don't feel like you're ready for it, you just need to like act as if. And I was like, okay. So and obviously that gives some insight into like, how the purpose will manifest. But yeah. So
the thing with man gens too is like, you're going to pivot a lot. So quitting is good. We just had a conversation about that when I was interviewing Emilie about her business, and Glennon on her podcast had a whole episode devoted to quitting and is it good or bad, and like what has society told us basically. And I'm trying to embrace the quitting too. I always joke that like under the umbrella of my business, so much is shifting underneath by me doing that. Like if I'm in control of the shifting, then I'm very comfortable there. And sometimes clients too, but mostly me kind of recalibrating and figuring out what I want to do. And I've never been comfortable with other people deciding like this is what your work is going to look like. And if I pivot under my umbrella where like, oh, look, she has this consistent business, but really like clients are moving around, upscaling, downscaling, all of that, then that's like a really comfortable place for me to be. And what's really interesting for me too, I'm Man Gen 2-4, and I kind of call it like the community hermit. So for example, I help manage this co-working space, and it's good for me to be around the energy of other people working, but not working with other people. And what I always kind of harp on, and my guru and Emilie's too, is Erin Claire Jones. She's so helpful in that stuff because I bought her blueprint and it really told me so much about myself and how I work, and really kind of showed me that feminine marketing is the right approach for me. So I attract clients. I never have to pitch by doing anything. All I do is talk about my work or respond to invitations. And that's probably the same for you too. So if you were in, let's say, a bunch of Facebook groups and you saw people asking for things, then you could respond to that. But like reaching out to people for man gens, it just doesn't work for us. Whereas Emilie, she's a generator. She can go after people, cold call them, cold email them by list, go after them actively, where for us, that's like too masculine. And more of like the sales approach that we've seen in the world. And it definitely has value because it works for a lot of people. But if you're not that type of person, then it's not going to work for you. And I think the problem is that that's what we see. Like we see these types. Even this podcast, which was Emilie's idea, is a marketing vehicle for us, but it's more feminine because we're really just talking with people, talking about our work. And if that attracts the right people to us, then great. If not, we're still having great conversations. And it's not necessarily the goal, but Emilie reminded me like this could be a vehicle for us, and it feels so much better than me being like, hey, this is how much my services cost on Instagram,
Yeah. No, I love that. And actually, Erin Claire Jones is how I found out about human design too. And so I have almost hit like, purchase the blueprint. Like so many times. So literally you guys gave me permission today. I'm doing it. Because I've known that, and I've actually, I thought maybe at some point I would do a deep dive into human design and try to weave that in with my work. But I think the hard thing is that it's like, I think I'm going to get to this point and feel like I know enough, and I never do. And I finally accepted I'm never probably going to. Like astrology is like the study of a lifetime. And I kind of think human design is too. And so I was like, you know what? I think I need to go the energy route. Like, let me just, something a little different. So
I have a client, and her Instagram is Love Neha Jha, NEHAJHA, and she does astrology and human design together, and it's really fascinating.
I love that.
I had a 2-hour session with her. She's one of our clients in my book session, and it's really cool. Like, she talks about how in correlation with your chart and your human design chart, like she just does them together, and it's really cool. So might be something to look into if that's kind of the route you want to go to. It's pretty fascinating how they work in conjunction.
Well, I just feel like, yes, and I really think they do. They complement each other so well. And I feel like human design provides this like further sort of energy insight that it just goes a little bit deeper. And you can get a little bit more in the weeds. So I think it's a nice blend of the two. I'm gonna have to check her out.
Yeah, she's pretty cool. And it's like behavioral, like the human design is like the behavioral aspect, like rather than just the traits, maybe, and like how they,
Yeah.
It's so fascinating.
Oh, I love it. Yes.
What I love about both of those modalities is that they really recognize, like astrology and human design, they recognize the layers and complexities within us of like, I feel like we spend so much time in our lives trying to, like, our reptilian brain is trying to put people in boxes and be like, okay, this is you. And so you said this, that means you also believe this. So that qualifies you as this. And I'm going to put you here. And then you go here. And I love that human design and astrology, it just really shows the layers of us as humans. And like, you have this side, but you also have this side. So like, consider how you can use those to your advantage or whatever, and gives you language to speak to the energetics like you were saying. Or for me, like, I felt so seen by both of like your birth chart reading and that human design blueprint, because it's like, I always knew that I hated working with people, but being around their energy, sure.
Yeah.
So it makes me feel productive, and like I have the option of humans, but I can like stay at my house.
Right. No, I know. I think my first ever birth chart reading, I felt so seen that I was like, I have to do this for other people, because it feels so good to have someone understand all those layers. And you're like, yeah.
Cool. That's cool that you said that, because Danica, remember her podcast episode, said when she had a sound blast played for her, she just knew she had to do it for other people. I think that's so cool. Like, there's a moment that you remember that you're like, wait, I need to do this.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it really was. It was that. And then it was like, oh gosh, okay. And then it was that, like, I have to do something. And this is like, I've had the moment with astrology of going, I know I have to do this. And so we're going to start there. So
I'm always fascinated by the husbands. So like, your husband's been on this whole, wave with you. And what has been his experience and reaction to all of it?
So at the very beginning, he was like, this is a little crazy. And I remember we were in New York. He's from New York. We were visiting family, and I went and did a tarot reading. And it was like my first kind of sort of spiritual sort of session with someone. And I remember coming back, and he was like, so are you into like brujeria, which is witchcraft? Or he was like, are you like a witch? Like, what is this? And I'm like, I don't know, like all those terms were so new for me. And I was like, well, no, I'm not. Like, no, but so it kind of started like that. And I think he was very skeptical. But what's been nice is that as I've gone through my changes, he now sees the same healers that I do. Cool. And he now even has one that's kind of like, he calls her like his guru too. And so he's gone on this journey as well. And even the reason that we're in the Dominican Republic is because I have a friend who sells crystals and does malas and does energy work. And her favorite stone was this stone called Larimar. And Larimar is only found in the Dominican Republic. And my husband happened to be in the Dominican Republic at the time. And so I said, hey, can you go find some of this Larimar? And, and like, let's see what this is all about. I don't know this stone. It's not, it's not rose quartz or, something that we have easy access to. And so he went and he got really connected to it. And he had like his own experience of being like, I feel like the stone was like vibrating with me, and just felt this huge connection to it. And so through that, he decided that he wanted to do some importing, exporting, and working with Larimar.
That's what I was hoping. So, I was like, send me some of that.
So that actually, I have a piece right here. Wow. But so that's what, yeah, it is. It's the stone of the ocean. It's compassion, the divine feminine. And it's a beautiful, beautiful stone. I'm like, everyone needs Larimar. Everyone needs it. So right now he's just kind of started his business, and he spent some time at the mines, and we're now in the process of figuring out how we market it. And he's going to be kind of like a broker, but we also want to have our own line and specialize in certain designs and doing things. So
send us the link.
Yeah, I know. I will.
That's incredible.
I will. So it is.
Hire us.
Yeah, it's been really fun to see it, and really exciting, because I feel like there couldn't be a better stone for him, because that piece of compassion and that piece of embracing the feminine and the flow is certainly an area that he, and I think a lot of men too, just really don't know how to connect into. And there's a resistance. I mean, we as women, there's a resistance. So, so anyways, it's just funny to think about, of all the stones, or how this could have happened for this to be one that is so connected to the feminine, and this, and this, the sea, the ocean, and the water, and, emotions and all that kind of stuff. I don't know. It feels right. And I mean, even the fact that we moved here, it was an intuitive hit one time, this past summer, where he was here and he was trying to figure out the business, and we thought, well, it's fine. He might just be going to the Dominican Republic more, and we'll make it work. And one night I was like, I think we just got to go. And I knew that the moment that I would tell him that I was on board for that, it was a wrap. It was going to be done, and we were going to do it. So I had to sit there with myself, because he's very all right, that's what we'll do then, all right, let's go. And so I had to sit with myself and go, okay, is this what I really want? Because this is, we had just gotten into pre-K at a school that my son would go to from pre-K to 8th grade. And there was a whole community that we were sort of built into. And so it was a lot of what do I want out of life? And it was a whole nother moment of going, is this the right decision? And I just was yep, we're doing it, and we're not gonna, worry about it, and we're just gonna go. We're just gonna do it. So we did.
That is so magical.
It does. It feels that way. And that in itself, the move has been really incredible for us. We've learned a lot. It has not been easy, but at the same time, I think our energies really balance each other out. My husband's he's very Virgo, very Capricorn, and actually very Scorpio. I always when I think about his sort of cosmic signature, his sun, moon, rising, I'm like, oh God, these are probably I shouldn't say that, because every sign has their, perhaps their challenges. And then of course the things that are wonderful, but a Scorpio, Virgo, and Capricorn mix. It's a rough one. But no. So anyways, but we balance each other really well. So he's fantastic about we had health insurance before we got here. We had an apartment, we had a car, we had Brooks enrolled into school, in a wonderful school. That's a great community for us. I mean, he had the whole thing set up. So we just kind of showed up, the place was already furnished, and we just sort of have fallen into this. And then I'm just really good about being in the flow and being whatever, it'll work out. So it's been a good balance for sure. I've kind of been trying to make this place a home. It's very modern, and that isn't necessarily my favorite, but it is. There's a lot of nice things about where we are, and so I'm very thankful for him for being able to hook it up. And he was actually born here, so, and he speaks Spanish as his first language, and it's my second language, and so it's nice that he can really do that, because I can get by certainly without a problem, but it's nice for the tough conversations that he can kind of roll with it. I have to give this example because this just about kicked me, but I thought I was going to the dentist, and I had a conversation with the dentist, and I thought, great, I'm coming back the next day and I'm going to get a cavity filled. And it ended up being a root canal. And I didn't realize that until we were about midway through. And I was like, this is a root canal that's happening right now. And she's like, yeah. Like, oh, somehow missed that one, So very rusty. So yeah, so I'm learning, but it's been good.
I feel like I would be the person to bring my crystal with me if I knew that it was a root canal or something. Like, I've even been in like the Botox chair. Like, can I hold a crystal?
Yes,
like,
no.
make me
Well,
feel
good.
better.
And I roll that way too. So I had my rose quartz and I had a little bit of citrine and my Larimar with me, but still.
Is he always been an entrepreneurial type? Like, I can't even fathom my husband being into crystals. He humors me, I feel like, but he isn't as into it, or he's not connecting as much yet as I'd like him to. He's on his way. But for my husband to go and start a crystal company, he's from Romania. So let's say we went to Romania and there was something really rare there. I can't imagine him even connecting with it and being like, yeah, this is going to be my next life.
So he was a commercial diver until he had a kind of like life-changing accident. This was 2018. He was riding a bike and he was hit by a car. And it was a horrible accident. And all things considered, the fact that—
And you had a baby.
Mm-hmm. So Brooks was, I think, like a little over 1 at the time. And it could have been horrible. I mean, the woman that I spoke to who was like on site when it happened, was, I think, worried about him being alive. And so when I got to the hospital, got to Harborview, and, luckily, and he had, was getting all the scans and everything done. He just had a compound fracture, tibia, fibula. So, I mean, which is brutal, but all things considered, to have no brain or back injury, we were just like, this was like, I don't know. I mean, of course I was like, you had support there because you shouldn't be here today. But through that process, he couldn't do his commercial diving anymore. And so that really for him was like, I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to go out on my own. And he's an ideation guy. Like, he loves ideas. And so I think he's just been flirting with different ideas since that time. And so I think this one just really stuck because of how kind of profound the connection was with the Larimar. And then the fact that I'm in this space too, and we kind of wanted to do something together-ish, that could kind of, play off of each other. And so, so that's kind of how it happened. But please believe, I mean, I just like you, I'm like, okay, but you need to take this like a little deeper, you need to, I'm trying to get him into therapy and all the things, and to do, past life work and inner child work. And that piece for him is still like, I don't think we need to go dig that kind of stuff up, do we? And I'm like, absolutely we do.
Yeah, so imagine if they listen to us.
But it believes in it. Because if I said like past life stuff to Billy, my husband, he'd be like, whatever.
I know. I'm like, but this is the good stuff. Like, this is where, it's just so helpful to understand all of that. I feel like I've learned so much about myself and have such a better understanding through it. I'm like, this helps you in your business. This helps with all the things. So I think he's on his way, but it is, and it's hard for you guys. Like, that's a challenge. I feel like I've listened to many podcasts of women, who go through their own journeys and their spouses, aren't there yet. And that's hard. Yeah, it is. It really is. So, but it's a process. So
I could read 1,000 books on it and I would still never understand the male resistance to being curious about themselves, even in the most basic, like, at least my husband goes to his physicals now, but that took me 5 years of being like, could you please just get a physical?
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah.
And he goes to acupuncture now too, but because working from home gave him like an acute pain in his elbow, and he was like, maybe this is the route I should take.
Yeah.
But like, don't even get me started on how like fucked Western medicine is, though, because when he mentioned he gets knee pain sometimes at his latest physical, they were like, oh, they asked him the question, anything else you want to talk about today? And he said, yeah, actually, I have some knee pain.
Yeah.
And they had him do an x-ray and then charged him, obviously, for the x-ray, and then an extra $300 for the visit, not covered by insurance because they were talking the way they code it.
Right.
Yeah. And they were talking about something not there. So like, it's to all of our benefit to go, you know, east-west mix, advocate for yourself and get curious about yourself, find all the healers so that you can like really be the best version. There's just such a like, you know, I'm hopeful for the next generation that they feel cool, like being in their feminine energy. I see all these TikToks of the dudes staying home while their wives earn 7 figures or whatever, and I'm like, more of this energy. Yes, great.
Yeah.
Love it.
Absolutely. I have to tell this story because it's just got me thinking about something, but same thing. So I started seeing a functional medicine doctor probably, I don't know, a year ago, and my husband was kind of like, you know, what are you doing? Okay, cool, whatever. But he went and did a physical, did a wellness check. And the guy, his doctor had said, well, you know, do you want to do blood work? And my husband was like, well, shouldn't we do blood work? I mean, don't we want to know if there's something wrong? And so did it, came back with really high cholesterol. And so he gave him a prescription for statins and said, this is genetic because you're in great shape. So you're going to be on statins for the rest of your life. Here you go. And when he came home with that, I was like, absolutely not. I was like, you're going to go to my functional medicine doctor and we're going to try to figure out what this is. You eat a really low carb diet. You work out 5 days a week. Like, hold on, what's happening here? And so we did. And he went to my doctor and he got a nutritionist. He switched up some of the fats that he was eating, completely took his cholesterol down into regular range, reached out to his doctor and was like, just so you know, I worked with a doctor who's right below you, who did this, and we cured it without having to be a lifetime on statins, right? And it just, you're like, wow, how many people have just done that? And then it's one drug becomes another drug, which becomes another drug. And I could go on and on and on, right? But I'm with you. It's like, it doesn't have to be one or the other. Just because I see a functional medicine doctor doesn't mean I'm not going to go to the ER if I have like a broken hand or something, you know? So it's a really interesting time because there's so much polarity right now. And you touched on it earlier. It's like, you're this, and so you're in this box, and you're this way, so you're in this box. But it's like, we need to get more curious. We need to ask questions. We need to be our own self-advocates. And, sometimes we need to question the narrative. And there should be nothing wrong with doing that. So anyway.
And to your point about cholesterol too, it's another thing that's so layered. There's what type of cholesterol, and, you know, just like you were saying, what does this mean and how is his diet impacting that? And I just want to beat a table and be like, can we just listen and dig deeper on this? Like, when you say high cholesterol, what kind of cholesterol? People don't even know to ask those questions or to get a second opinion. And I'm lucky, like going back to my dad being sick when he had brain cancer, that's when my mom really showed me what it was like to advocate and be like, no, we want to try this. We want to talk to this person. We want to get this opinion before we make a decision. Even something as simple in Western medicine, which will like always get my hackles up, of monthly MRIs, they're black and white still. So when it would show something on his MRI that looked new, because it was black and white, we didn't know if that's new growth or that's scar tissue. And that's the difference between life and death for somebody like in his position. So then we were like, our doctors said, oh, just wait till next month. And it's like the most aggressive cancer, or one of them. So it's like, we don't have a month to wait for this. So we took him. And what's funny too is our hospital here, he was at Swedish, they had the machines to do a 3D x-ray to be able to see what it actually was. And they didn't feel comfortable using it, or they weren't trained yet on it. So we just went to UCLA and met with a different doctor and went to this like conference thing, and we were able to see that it in that instance was scar tissue versus new growth. But like, how many people have to get sicker or die or not get the help that they don't even know they need because we're so, overwhelmed or don't have the capacity to understand. But in that instance, I just wish that a doctor would be like, that even just an extra sentence of like, you have high cholesterol. We don't know exactly what this means or what it's caused by. So I would recommend, these resources.
Or looking at the kinds of food that you're eating and trying this for a little while and seeing if it changes. And if it doesn't, then let's put you on medication. But it's so quick to like meds.
Right. And it's like this system of medicine of just like, one size fits all, and it's not. And it just, yeah. Yeah.
And that's why I think the work that you're doing is so important too, because it's like, even if your sun, moon, and rising, or just your sun, like that is such a tiny, tiny bit of the picture. And I think like everything that we're talking about really goes back to like exploring more than one page or more than one sentence of like this particular subject, especially when it comes to you and getting to know yourself and what drives you and how you came into this world. Like you were saying, your cosmic signature, what does that mean for me? And how can I best use it to my advantage? Or how can I know going into this situation that like I might feel prickly because this is just how I'm built, or, what lessons I have to learn because of all of this.
Exactly. Well, and it is. And, I guess it's not just healthcare, but it's like the system in which we're in. Everything is like, you fit in this box and you take this path. And so it is like things like astrology or, or whatever different kind of medicine, alternative options. It's like, yeah, we get to peel back the layers a little bit. We get to figure out we're all so very different, and we're dealing with the physical, but it's of course more than the physical. It's the emotional, it's the energetics, it's the spiritual. By the time that the body is getting sick or is in this place, like everything has happened already in the other realms. And so it's like the final piece. And it's so layered,
That's why Chinese medicine has been so cool for me. Like,
yes.
Mind, body, soul, spirit, like it's all one. And Whitney referred me to my practitioner, Carly, at Iris Wellness. She's amazing in Edmonds, but I've been seeing her for like 2 months now, and it's just been like amazing. Herbs and acupuncture, and just I used to do like primarily Western medicine because I had a near-death experience and like, totally believe in emergency medicine and life-saving measures and everything. But then, you'd go and something didn't feel right, but you couldn't pinpoint it. And so they're like, nothing's wrong with you. I'm like, okay. So I went to a naturopath and they're like, lots of things are wrong with you. Take 847 supplements. And I was like, And so this is like a really good balance for me. Like, I really like it. And they're looking at, it's not just your whole body, right? It's like your body and your mind and your soul. She's like, how are you doing emotionally? Are you keeping up with your spiritual practices? Like, it's just the perfect combination for me. And I'm so like fortunate to have found it.
Like, I know, that's how I feel too. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm like, I just want to scream it from the rooftops. I'm like, why isn't everyone wanting to do this? Why don't you want to have your Chinese herbalist, your TCM or, and your functional medicine and your quantum healer over here and your da-da-da.
And I also think it's a misconception that like you have to have something wrong with you, like, or physically feel pain somewhere in order to go to these healers or people. Like I go to my acupuncturist at least, or I try to go once a month just for stress reduction or taking out toxins from my body. And I always joke with everybody, like, I tell her everything that is possibly wrong in my body, and it's so helpful. Like even this last time I mentioned, I tend to be pretty low energy, like as a person. And, when I was pregnant, they finally told me that I was borderline anemic, which I always thought I was, but not until my daughter was sucking every nutrient out of my body did like the blood test reveal that. And she said, oh, and she was like, we often carry viruses in our bodies. Like people just always have dormant viruses in our bodies. So like try this tincture and see if it helps you feel better and just maybe get whatever this is like out of your body. It might not be it, but like to have a person who actually listens to you and validates that is a reasonable experience for a person to have, and it might not be anemia, or try this thing that won't hurt you at all. That has always been like really powerful for me to just unload everything and be like, what can you do? Even if I feel like nothing's wrong, even if I'm just like, I'm a little stressed, like, can you do some cupping? I love the cupping.
Yeah. Well, and even like just to be able to verbalize what those things are and to kind of be able to let things out, like that's healing in itself too, So it's all so important. So I feel like that's what I want my work to be. I just want to share. And I think that goes, I know I keep talking about my Gemini moon, but I've been doing a lot of work, around kind of understanding my chart more and how to work with it. But it is, and kind of when I'm at this, place of trying to figure out how to grow my business and how to scale and what I want to weave in, I'm like, I just want to share. I want to share all the things that I learn.
Mm-hmm. And I love that you follow up with a list of people you love too, of like, here's these other people that you should talk to.
Yeah, thank you. I know it was at first because I do try to customize it a little bit towards who I'm working with, but I thought this is kind of a time suck or like whatever, but I felt like that's what I wish that other healers would have done. And some have said, oh, I'll send you this person's contact information or whatever. But I think where my kind of sweet spot is, the folks that I work with are sort of on the fence. They're not super into the world that I'm in, but they're sort of 1 foot in, 1 foot out, or they're a little curious. And so I remember what it was like to sort of start on my own journey and have just like, kind of wide-eyed, like, what is this? What is trustworthy? What isn't? And so that is part of my passion too, is just sharing those people who, help me on my journey. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. One last question before we get into rapid fires that I have for you is, I remember from our session when you were looking at the chart, it was like focused on the now part of your life. Like, how often do you recommend people check in with their charts and what's shifting or moving for them? Or like, let's say, should my mom and I have a session with you every year, every 6 months, every 7 years? Like, what do people's like big shifts look like on their charts for you?
Yeah, I would say definitely once a year, either on your birthday or the new year, or the astrological new year with like spring equinox, would be amazing. I think quarterly would be like ideal. I realize that might not be for everyone, but I think we can really dive in and get really deep in a quarterly session, but certainly I really enjoy my year ahead sessions and looking at what the energy is like that's coming in, because it just gives you the opportunity to go, okay, this is coming up for me. How am I going to work with it? For example, for my husband, I looked at his chart and I went, this is actually a really great time for you to reconnect with your roots and where you're from. And so that was like another piece that sort of added into our decision to come here. We also are going through a hard period where there's some questioning on both sides for our relationship, and just the things that we value. And so, but now we have that knowledge. And so when things come up, it's easier to know that there's that energy there of perhaps some questioning. And so it's like, all right, how do we work with it instead of like, what's going on? He's valuing this, I'm valuing this, we're not seeing eye to eye. So anyway, so I think it's really, I think definitely once a year, if not quarterly.
Yeah, I definitely want to give it to myself for my birthday.
Yes.
Every year. I'm so funny about what I want for things now. Like, I said I wanted for Christmas to buy myself a piece of art from a local artist. And then I just always want these, like, I wanted to get multiple blood tests too. I wanted to ask my mom, because those are expensive. I'm like, okay, if my mom wants to get me something for Christmas, she can get me like a blood panel of like 100 different tests just to see what's right and wrong with me.
Yeah, no.
So funny.
I know how things change, right?
So our rapid fire questions, which aren't always rapid, is starting with, what is your coffee order?
Oh gosh, you guys, I am a straight black gal. I am just drip coffee, straight black. Yep.
I love, the only drip coffee that I've ever loved was from Cafe Vita, their location in Queen Anne.
Yeah.
They had the best drip black coffee I've ever had in my life. And I usually want to add things. So
yeah,
that was big for me.
Good to know.
And what is your first happy memory?
Oh my gosh, that's a really good one. First really happy memory would probably be, so I don't remember childhood very well. I'm one of those people, but Christmas is like I am a Christmas person. I have always been a Christmas person. And so I think I was like 8, and I remember, anyways, we got a trip to Hawaii, but it was a box, and we opened the box, and the box said, the t-shirt said Ashley in Hawaii, Christmas or whatever. And my brother had the same t-shirt, and, anyways, that's probably my first one.
That is like my level of cheesy. I love
that. Okay. Yeah. It's like, I don't know if that's really materialistic, but that's, that's the first one that comes to mind. So.
Oh, no, I love it. What clothing item would you wear every day if you could?
Oh God, right now it's my Birkenstocks. And it's so funny to my friends because I used to be, the 6-inch heel gal. And it's funny being here because the culture here is super glam. And so when we go to do drop off for our son, I'm always like, oh God, everyone's just done up and in heels, and I am in yoga pants and Birkenstocks and like a hat. But anyways, so I'm working on my glam up, but right now my Birkenstocks.
I have gold Birkenstocks, and my dad actually lived in his Birkenstocks, and we one year thought it would be nice to give him Birkenstocks for a holiday, and he wouldn't wear them because they weren't broken in. Right. They were like, the Birkenstocks were older than I was, so I was like, oh, this will be a really nice gift. Like, no, that's not what he wanted. Yeah. So that was pretty funny. He never wore the new Birkenstocks.
That I bought gold Birkenstocks because you inspired me. I love them.
Oh, I'm so glad.
I have rose gold ones, but I would love some gold ones.
I think I got them at the rack like 5 years ago, and they saved the end of my first pregnancy because my feet were so swollen. And I'd sit with my feet up on a box under my desk, and they would not go down. I hated my cankles.
Oh, I remember that. Yep.
What's the best business purchase you've made in the last 6 months under $100?
Honestly, Calendly is a booking tool. And when I was trying to start, I kept thinking it's going to be this really elaborate process, and I've got to find this website that does all these things. And so I was kind of in a stalling place of where I was like, I don't know what to do. And then a friend of mine who started doing Reiki sent me her link, and I was like, oh, I think it took me 10 minutes, and that made me feel legit. I didn't have a website really then. My Instagram wasn't as robust as it is now. Not that it is anything huge, but so anyways, it made me feel official. So my Calendly, it's easy. It's really, really easy to use. So
yeah, so nice not going back and forth with people about that. That's a great answer. Last of the rapid fires, what is lighting you up lately?
Oh gosh. Right now, I think I'm just in this place of everything is so new for us, and we're making so many big changes, and it just, I don't know. It's like there's a new energy of like anything's kind of possible right now. And so, and I think it's the location. I think it's the sun. I think it's, there's something about being here and sort of being on our own a little bit, and all of that is just like, we have more new business ideas than ever, which also scares me a little bit, but it's just, it's kind of an electrifying time. And I really think this move is what it is in our location. And perhaps the sun. And it's funny because the sun, I have a really strong connection with the moon, and I love working with the moon. The moon is the biggest planet in my chart. It rules my chart. And so I'm a very lunar gal. But I think just connecting more with the sun and being here, and it's inevitable. And so I'm just sort of like, okay, I feel like the sun is really sort of coming in, and we're trying to figure out how to work with it, but it's giving a lot of energy, a lot of life. I have more energy than I've ever had. Like, oddly, my grays are really slowing down. My eyesight feels better. Like, there's just little things that's changing with having all of this really, really intense sun. So, yeah.
So literally the sun is lighting you up.
Yeah. I was like, wait, where am I going with this? But it is. It's this new energy. Well, right? Because we were in Seattle, and it's just different when this is like, sun every day, and really, really intense sun and humidity. So.
Can we come visit you?
Oh my God, please. Please. I'm like, everyone just come to the city. So we live in the capital, which is, I think when I tell people I live in the Dominican Republic, they're thinking like, Punta Cana or like a beach town. And I'm like, no, I live in like a city of 3 million people. There is a lot of wealth and a lot of poverty. It's like a extreme, but it's beautiful, and it's a pulsating city, and it's wild. But I say that because I'm like, come, you get to experience this, and then we get to go to the beach and relax. So.
I've never been to the DR, but I've heard.
Me and Danica want to do like a retreat. We want to figure out a way to host some sort of retreat and have people come. So we'll have to let you guys know.
I'm in.
I love it. Yep.
So Ashley, tell our listeners how they can find you.
Yes. Probably best way to find me is on Instagram. It's _shiftandshine. But my website is also shiftandshine.com. I have a TikTok, but I'm still, you guys, I love TikTok so much. And then I have it's like, I'm terrified of it. I'm terrified of having my own, but I'll spend hours on it every day. So, but also TikTok, Shift and Shine. So that's but Instagram, probably the best way. So.
Thank you so much for giving us so much time today.
No, thank you guys. I'm a chatty Kathy, so I super appreciate it. I love what you guys are doing. I'm so inspired by it. I want to do something similar. I just want to connect and share. And I love that you guys are doing that, and that you guys have also forged your own paths, and you're doing your thing. So anyways, thank you
Please
so much.
do it.
Yes. We'll see.
This episode's music was provided by Sloan Best.
And editing provided by Kayla Shute.